They're on the table over there. So I think we need to go right on to our next agenda item, and that's what's next moving forward with compassion. Lynette Lau was going to moderate this, but she had a family emergency, and so we have Suzanne Meeks, and thank you very much.
Okay, so we're going to use this handheld mic. John is going to run around with that handheld mic. So that this is your time to participate a little bit. And Patty is going to write things down that you come up with. So I think we're going to use about 5 minutes, maybe a little more, just to brainstorm. Just whatever's on your mind about what could we do? What would you like to see? We've got a community of people here with lots of ideas who care about this problem. Just let's get some ideas on this piece of paper. What can you imagine this community or your individual community doing or contributing? So we'll just start there, and we'll do that for about 5 minutes. So just raise your hand, John. We'll bring you a mic, or if you're up here in front, come to my mic. Pam, over here, John.
This is kind of as an idea for the community as a whole, and that is to change zoning regulations to allow people to give accommodation in either tiny houses or RVs in their driveways for people who are homeless and need a place to stay.
Thank you.
Here at First Unitarian, we are in the process of forming a compassion team of people who've been to this training and who can go out and engage with people in our churchyard. And we'd be very interested if there are other people that are wanting to do the same kind of thing, to have some kind of support network.
I'm Suzanne Barrow. I want to say Conestoga Huts. If you are aware of this, out on the West Coast for the last 7 years, they have had the small emergency facility. It is a hut that can house the homeless. It can lock so that their belongings stay. Out in Eugene, Oregon, Washington State, Utah, Idaho, Colorado, California, Texas are using these. So it's Conestoga Huts. Feel free to Google them, take a look at it. There are people in the city that have already asked me to talk to them, which is overwhelming because I just thought it was just a good idea. But I'd like for all of you to take a look and see what you think of these. The group that's out there with, community-supported shelters is the group. They share absolutely everything. The huts cost $2,500, or they can be made for $350. They immediately stop the crisis. They're not for everybody to stay in there, but it is transitional to stabilize the crisis immediately.
Thank you, Suzanne.
Thank you, Suzanne.
Other thoughts? What are you hoping to do?
Yeah, my name is Doug Gatenby, and when the program was going through security issues, something came to mind, and it was mentioned maybe peripherally, but I know there are certain clients that are especially sensitive to police and ICE, isophobics, if you want to call them that, because that's a very deep concern when you're working with them. They are reluctant to give any information sometimes because of ICE concerns.
So is your thought, making us sensitive to that? Is that what your thought is it being sensitive to the vulnerability of the folks that we're working with? Okay, thank you.
I'm Angela, and I work at the cathedral. And just an observation, there's no place right downtown where there are restrooms. I just find that very hard to believe.
Thank you.
Somebody wants to know why they went outside on our front steps. Well, there's no place else to go. I mean, you could do it on the side steps, but...
Yes, hello, my name is Darnell. I really like this series, The Compassion, because I worked at the Wayside Shelter, and I was a front desk monitor, and what you were saying is definitely right. We're in the forefront, and I was living there also. So it's different than individuals that's seeing the homeless and confront them, but go to their homes to where we have to live there, and it could be on an individual's mind, well, they might get me later or so forth and so on, things of that nature. But by me using compassion, I feel that the compassion worked because I'm not knocking down anybody with a college degree or have that experience, but we all heard of hands-on. And I had hands-on experience in seeing those that have been there 10 or 20 years, not saying all, a few, they have a way of harsh treatment as far as the way they speak or just the worthless spice heads of The Walking Dead. So I noticed like the year and a half or the 2 years that I was there and speaking to people with compassion, they'd rather talk to me than those that been there for a long time. Because I go, well, hello, how you doing? And they might say, yeah, okay. Hello, how you doing? Yeah, okay. I come along, hey, Darnell. You know, they brighten up. You make us feel good. You don't talk to us that, you know, like we're worthless. But then I've been in a homeless situation myself. And as far as what would help is that when you see a homeless individual that's doing better than others, it's good to get that individual because I know a lot of people in Louisville because I worked in being homeless myself. You know, when I come along, they more, you know, they will listen to me more than somebody that they don't know and also know that that homeless individual has a good heart. Because when people know people, oh, well, this is a First Unitarian Church, but if I go around and see somebody, hey, how you doing? Hey, what's up, Darnell? Well, what's up? Well, you know, I attend First Unitarian Church, and it's a sacred place, and you know, a variety of people are buried, and we want to keep the grounds, you know, and it's not saying that you would do something wrong, but when they say, oh, okay, Darnell, I know you, you know what I'm saying? Like, identification is important when people know each other, you know, and compassion, love, and care, and spirituality, because we don't want to seem like a dictator. But when, you know, because homeless people are very gifted, and they can vibe your energy and know where, you know, as far as where you're coming from, are you just saying, go, leave, don't be around here anymore? I care for you. Let's heal the soul of the individual, the spirit.
So it sounds like you're saying, you're reiterating what Tim says, which is that we need to keep working at that compassion piece, that's really important. Thank you. Somebody in the back, Reverend Laurie.
I would encourage those of us who come from faith, excuse me, from faith communities to bring this information not only to our own congregations, but to our denominational affiliates, and not only in Louisville, but in the state and even broader. Don't assume that people hold this information. We had one of our own congregants, Bill Allison, who has looked around at other Unitarian settings in the country, looking for information. This is happening everywhere. What are our other churches doing? And came up pretty empty-handed. Don't assume that people are doing the same thing that's happening here today. Please, please spread it out, and one way to do that is through our faith communities.
Thank you. Laura.
Feels like I can escape easier. I was just going to say, so a couple things. Talking about trauma-informed care, I think it's really important to acknowledge that, yes, we've been training in facilities and groups, communities for a long time. I'm not sure that we're necessarily walking that walk. So as you talk about compassion and the need for, seeing people and being present with people, we can trauma-informed care train all day long, but not necessarily be an environment that feels welcoming, that offers hospitality, that offers, sort of being a good concierge. So I would say those are things that we can still keep working on, that I don't feel like just because we tick that box in terms of training, it means we're living and breathing and being that way. The other thing I would say is, and I'm conflicted about this, I don't want to sound like I have come down on one side or the other of the idea about things like the small huts or the even parking lot spaces that we might offer up to be sort of rezoned. But it is a complicated mix. It's not just about giving a place for people to be and lock up their things and live. It's also about who preys on those individuals and whether they're going to be safe if we offer up spaces. So I do think there's a need to kind of recognize this is a complicated puzzle. It's not one factor, it's not one solution, it's not even just money. It's about changing systems, right? So it's changing lots of dispositions and systems. It's also about the idea that not everybody who may seem like they need, our care will take up the offer, right? We have lots of people I know who are sitting here who know this better than me because they interact with individuals on the street all day long. That's their job, and we're trying to learn more from them. But this idea that if there's so much that has gone wrong, that's a history we can't forget, and that those individuals may not immediately come back to trust and take advantage of things we think they need. Like what we need and what they want may be different things, or what we can offer and what they want, or what they'll agree to, or different things. So I would just say those are things to.
Thank you. Okay, I said we would have 5 minutes. We've used 10, so I think we're going to try to move on to try to pull some of these things together, but keep those ideas flowing. I know that there were also some things that our group had been talking about that I think one of them's on there, but others are not. But what Laura Haynes just said triggered one of those, which is that we as a group here have, going back to our churches and going back to our communities, have a fair amount of power to advocate for system change. And that if that's part of what needs to happen, then we put our voices together and we're mindful of that power, we can maybe affect some of that system change that's so critical for changing the problem from the top down rather than trying to fix the little pieces at the bottom. Yes, you had a comment.
Yeah, I just wanted to say real quickly, I'm the Reverend Catherine Doyle from St. Thomas Episcopal Church on Westport Road, as well as president of the CLCM board. And I brought a group from our parish today because I think we need to remember, too, that homelessness exists all over the city. And just in the last 2 or 3 weeks, we've had several break-ins just for people that wanted to sleep. There was no intent, but we're beginning to think about how can we help with that. For us to ask somebody to leave, then they have to get on a bus. They may not want to get on the bus. The buses may not be running. So this problem, it's a systemic issue that goes well beyond the bounds of downtown Louisville.
Right. Thank you for that reminder. Let's see. One other comment I wanted to make, and then we can kind of look at what's up here. One of the things that sort of didn't come up is specific services that churches could provide. And I know that there are churches that are providing food, needle exchange, showers, laundry, other kinds of services like that. So be thinking about also what in your specific church or community is a service that can be offered. We've been talking about the possibility of offering breakfast because, especially for women, people get discharged from the shelters. There's a gap between for women especially, there's no place for them to go until 9 o'clock, and that's only 3 days a week downtown. I don't know where else in the city, but so just having a place to go and have a cup of coffee might be nice for some of those folks. So that's something that we've been talking about. We don't know the feasibility of that, but just those kind of things just to be thinking about. It sounds like a number of the things on our list here are sort of more about advocacy. And so one of the things that I really want to encourage everybody to do, if you have not already done, to give us your email address so that we can continue to connect. And so whatever it is that you are doing in your community, there are ways that we communicate already, but so that we can continue to connect and sort of continue this conversation over time, but also to maybe start in on some of these more sort of larger projects that we might have to step into and step up for, where we get support from one another. So if we at First Unitarian were to start something, who in the rest of this group might, in our neighboring churches, be interested in helping us if we put ourselves together? The Room in the Inn is another one, thank you, that I know Barbara Sexton-Smith has been very interested in supporting and advocating. So anything else like that. We don't have time to kind of make an entire list, but I think the important thing is that we are not just talking and not just getting our compassion on, but then we're actually going to use that compassion in some way to change our behavior, so that we're not just talking about the problem, but actually making some kind of difference with the problem.
I wanted to
John.
say, this isn't doing anything. No, it is. What is? I'm sorry.
Just
So
put it right
my
up
name's
to your
John
mouth.
Peabody, and what I wanted to my name is John Peabody, and what I'm on the Homeless Coalition here. There is, if you go to the internet and look up people and churches and huts and stuff, there's articles about people, certain churches having 2 parking places for homeless people, or there may be a church that has property and they allow huts to be there. So there's articles on there. And then the other point I wanted to bring up is the liability issue of having a bathroom on your property or something. I mean, apparently that's one of the drawbacks or the fears of people shooting up drugs or bad things happening or something bad happening. So that maybe is one of the issues. But yes, our property has issues of people going to the bathroom and maybe leaving needles and things of that nature. So we are absolutely, interesting to hear about other parts of the county having the other issues.
Thank you. Any other comments before I turn this mic over to our outreach workers? Yes, over here. Uh-huh.
Working.
Folks in our community who are homeless and end-of-life issues, whether it's hospice or Hildegard House, and I never know whether
Testing.
those folks have access to end-of-life services. I feel like it's a gap that, perhaps as a community, we're just not addressing the end-of-life issues, whether it's hospice care or Hildegard House, or those individuals who are at the end of their lives, and the thought of them dying alone or is just I just don't hear a lot of talk about that, and perhaps it's being addressed and I just don't know it. But
Thank you. That's a great comment.
I want to suggest, too, that we've given an overview of several things here today, and I think one thing we could think about is some sort of a workshop series. So we've kind of gotten the beginning session of compassionate encounters, so something more in-depth where we do some modeling and role-playing and practice some of these strategies, where we get on Louis Connect and we try using that. So we might think about how we could all work together to start a workshop series for compassion teams that are trying to do this in an ongoing way.
I might add just a couple things. One is the answer to your question. The Community Health Worker Network here in Louisville does have access to palliative care, end-of-life information and resources. Some of those folk can provide you. Most of those are through the public health and at some of the medical centers around town, so that information does exist. I also might add that one of the other resources I think we should be tapping into, and it's really a professional resource, and that is mental health counseling and social work folks who are going through the programs at Spalding, at University of Louisville, at IU Southeast, in particular mental health areas, might be a good resource for setting up partnerships with the universities to provide that kind of assistance and people to help. So it certainly would be something that I know I would have had my counseling folks participate in that as part of their practicum process, so that we'd get at least 6 months to a year amount of work out of them for free as a way to improve our services.
Okay, I think it is time for our outreach workers.